So the first question comes from Austin Drew.
We appreciate everyone's support. We definitely appreciate everyone's questions. We definitely
subscribers.
Yesterday is gone, forget about tomorrow, and the ceilings you see right through. Find the moment and make it, write your headline and raise it to the sky. No one else can create it. Take your banner.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Sailing Dauntless, and joining us for our wrap-up of our Power Series. And in this episode, we're going to do some follow-up to some questions that people have been asking over the last few weeks that we reached out and asked you guys to let us know what you thought, or what questions that you had. And so here we go. So let's just jump right into it. So the first question comes from Austin Drew. And they ask, with all the battery storage and solar, did you consider using electric motors on the boat? And that's actually an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. We do have a pretty big battery bank, which we'll touch base, give you the specs on it here in just a few minutes. And after hearing that, everyone thought, oh, you must be doing electric motors in the boat.
We actually had a lot of questions about that very thing.
And we're not, actually. So if we do electric motors, we'll do a separate battery bank for those motors and actually probably install a DC to DC generator on the boat to maintain that battery bank. We have a lot of amp hour capacity, but that balances with our solar system, which really allows us to maintain the level of consumption that we need for just house usage, and it really doesn't give us the extra juice that we need to do motoring. So I would say, yeah, if we were to ever do electric, we would install motors in addition to the diesels. And we want to keep diesel so that we have a backup. Because things happen. Boats get struck by lightning, and if everything gets snuffed out, we want to be able to make some repairs so that we can still motor underway if necessary. So that would be the answer to that question.
Next is Hans Lutenberg. Hans asked, would you start your main engines with the DC to DC converter? Do you plan on either 48 volt DC or 110/220 to heat the hot water heater? So go to the first part of the question is, would you start your main engines with a DC to DC converter? Based on the way the setup is currently, we don't want to have to add any additional DC to DC converters for that purpose. So we have a separate battery bank that actually is just start batteries for the motors. That is their sole purpose, is just start batteries. And that's based on the diesel engines and the setup that we have currently. That's the way we're going to run it and keep it kind of separated so the engines are not dependent on anything from the house. They are completely separate. With regards to the 48 volt DC or 110 on the hot water heater, the thought process with the hot water heater is that we're actually doing a tankless propane hot water heater. So yes, there is a DC ignition source for that hot water tank, but it's a very, very, very low draw, which is why when we did the consumption video, the girls and I pointed out that it's so low that we're not even calculating it in our consumption per se, because it is so low, and that it is propane fueled. So we're not using any electricity to actually fuel the usage of it. We like hot water, we like hot showers, especially when you want to warm up from being out in the salt air. So that's kind of how we circumvented that.
And the propane produces way more hot water per as far as the density of the energy goes. I think we'll get to this when we go to the hot water heater install. And we'll do a video on that or touch base on it in a video. But one 20-pound propane tank, like a barbecue tank, will do almost 950 gallons of hot water. There's no way you could produce anywhere near that level of hot water with batteries that would fit into the same space as a propane tank. So, all right, so Brian Trotta asks, concerned about weight gain. You took out lead acid, but what is the net weight gain? And that's actually a really good question. We had 4 AGM batteries in this boat, and they were 225 amp hours apiece. The spec on that was about 186 pounds per battery. So we pulled those out, and we added in 10 Tesla modules that were only 58 pounds apiece. So the difference on that was a couple hundred pounds lighter on the actual Tesla modules over the 700 and some odd pounds for the AGMs, but our
the
inverter charger from Victron is actually a 15,000 watt inverter charger, and that guy weighs, I think it tips the scale at almost 175 or 200
just shy of 200 pounds, I think.
So it's really heavy. So if you take the auto transformer, which allows us to have a split phase, which you go back in the previous videos about wiring and why we use that auto transformer in neutrals, that thing weighs about 20 or 30 pounds, plus the inverter, plus the batteries. We actually only picked up 40 pounds in the boat. So it was a pretty good swap out. And we're going to take out the generator, which we don't need, and needed service and really need some major work on it anyway. So that's going to save us, with that 13 kilowatt generator, we're going to drop another 600 and some odd pounds from that. So,
and remember, our intention right now is not to replace the generator. So we are going to see how it goes. We are going to add more solar, so stay tuned for that. But the generator we're not planning on doing. So we do have a lot of weight that is coming off as a substitute for some of the weight that we've added in. So we do want to make sure that we're weight balanced as we go along, but we can do that in the other things that we're doing, like the port forward cabin where we're adding that utility and storage room. It's not going to have the typical personal gear in it because it's going to have things like a washer and dryer and the vacuum sealer and that sort of thing. So we are going to redistribute the weight. So good question about the weight, but really when it comes to the actual battery situation, we didn't add any extra weight from the batteries themselves, but the overall package with batteries, inverter, and auto transformer were just slightly above.
Right.
But nothing egregious that would cause for concern.
No. So I'm going to butcher this, so I apologize. And this person has made quite a few comments on our videos. And
Solist? I don't know. We're butchering it. I'm sorry.
I apologize. If you want to send me a message, I won't mispronounce it next time. And they said, does shadow from sails affect how much power you can generate from your solar panels? And do you plan on using wind or hydro generation as a backup? I'm going to actually attack the back end of that question first. Wind and hydro. We get asked a lot about wind and hydro, especially when we mentioned that we're not going to have the generator. We looked at this a lot, and I haven't done a lot of research on hydro specifically, but wind a lot. And they're noisy. And we don't like noise. That's the whole reason for us getting rid of the actual generator, is to make the boat quiet. So the actual net value that comes out of wind is for the noise that it makes, and then we're gonna start looking like a rolling gypsy wagon here before long if we start putting too much stuff on the boat. So no, we did look at putting it on top of the mast, on the back of the boat, front of the boat, and there just really isn't a good place for it. And then hydro generation, we don't have any experience sailing. So I really don't know how much drag we're going to get with these big monster props that we put on that we had to order in an emergency so we can get out of the yard. And we will probably, yeah, we're still here. And we will probably try to do a feathering prop at some point, the point of that is that may reduce some of the drag, so give us the ability to do hydro generation if we decide to go that route. But, I don't think we're going to need it. And it's just one more piece of equipment to maintain. So back to the shadows. Yes, shadowing has a huge impact on how much energy you're going to be producing. And to combat that, we've actually added a lot of solar charge controllers. So we have 5 panels on the back of the boat and then plus one in front of that over top of the rear cockpit. And the two outboard port and the two outboard starboard are on their own charge controller. And then the two center panels are on their own charge controller. And we did that because if we shadow one part of the array, we didn't want the whole array to get knocked out. And I have rewired it a couple different ways and done some tests on it. And I'm really glad that we did that, because inevitably with a sailboat and all the stuff sticking up in the air, even lines running across the solar panels will drop out a lot of potential out of the solar panels. All right, guys, so here's the example. This center panel right here and this panel are tied together on the same charge controller. So right now we are recording, let go, Kim. And we're now at 663 down to 349. And you can see how there's barely a little bit of shadowing right up in that corner right there.
Right across the backside of this.
And as we're moving over, we're now at 347, 225, 192, 194, and that is just this shadowing right here across the back. There's a small line right here, and then right up at the back point you can see where the bottom of the boom comes up on the back side right here on the solar. So now I take this and we move it out of the way, and you can see the solar come up. No infringement, and we're at 646. When we get around to adding more panels, which we'll be doing, we're going to add 3 more charge controllers. And I think all in we'll be tipping the scales at maybe $1,200 or $1,500 in solar charge controllers by the time they're said and done. They're all Bluetooth, they're all Victron, and they're all smart charge controllers. So they all talk to each other and network together through our color control. And we are specifically doing that because if the sun's on port, starboard's getting shadowed, unless of course you're facing directly away from the sun. So that is our way to combat that. And yes, we see it, and we heeded everybody's advice and decided, you know what, let's just double down on charge controllers. So that's the answer to that question. Purchase. This is Jeff Roddett. It's on Reddit, and so he asked, is there any idea on age or usage of the batteries? I'm assuming that's before we got them. And is the 53 kilowatt rating that you quote the current capacity or the new spec? Great questions. Thank you, Jeff. So the age of the batteries, yes. Our battery bank came out of a 75 kilowatt Model S Tesla. That car had 14 modules in it, and the damage that happened to the top of the car is it did not get wet, but it got totaled out in body damage and interior damage. And it had, I believe, 7,500 or 7,700 miles on the car.
Which is actually a good part of the question. If you are looking at doing something like a Tesla battery or Leaf batteries, that would be another car company that you could get their battery out of and do a similar type of a system. Make sure that you are investigating that battery to see what the hours or the mileage that the car had on it if you're purchasing it out of a car. It is a great question to have, and not all the sellers will always list it, so definitely do some research and investigation on that.
Yes.
The seller that we bought it off of eBay was very transparent with all of that, so we got all good information.
And I don't recall the name of the company, but if you guys have any questions, please feel free to send us a message, and I'll dig it up and I'll send it out to you. Where the battery banks come from or the battery packs come from is crucial, because you don't want a flooded car or somebody that went down to a junkyard and bought an old Tesla and it got flooded and they just sell it to you. So all the packs were tested and verified. When they got to us, we tested them and verified them again. So we did load capacity tests and all kinds of fun stuff on that. And we chose Tesla. You mentioned Leaf. There's a bunch of different batteries that are available out there. We chose Tesla because they're the most energy dense battery source currently available secondhand off of the car market. And the Nissan Leaf stuff, not to to berate Nissan Leaf by any means, they're a lot less expensive, but a lot of what we found is you're only going to get some percentage, and I forgot exactly, but maybe 60 to 80% of the actual battery capacity, whereas Tesla,
which capacity is a big deal.
Capacity is a big deal. And because we treat our batteries nice, we only deplete down to 10%, and we don't charge over 90%, which we'll get to in the end of this question. That's going to give us somewhere in the neighborhood of, we're hoping, some between 10 and 20,000 charge cycles. Those batteries in a car are made to last 500,000 miles, and it still have 80%. So let's get to the capacity. 53 kilowatt hours is actually the rated capacity of the packs raw. If you deplete it down to 0 and charge up to 100, which of course we do not do. So when you take 80% out of that, we end up about 42.4 kilowatt hours out of that. If we only are able to use 80% down the road, we're still talking in the neighborhood of the high 30 kilowatt hour, and that is 10 or 20 years from now,
right,
which we will probably not have this boat in 10 or 20 years, I'm imagining. So, good question. Yes, spec is important. Yes, knowing where you get them and getting from a reputable source is absolutely crucial. And if you have any questions about that, call the person or contact the people that you're going to buy them from. And if they don't know what they're talking about,
run far, run fast.
One last little piece on that. If you're going to use Tesla like we did, we looked all over the globe. There is a company out of the Netherlands, I believe, that does some sort of BMS monitoring. We went with the stateside company, which we've mentioned before here. It's evtv.me. They're out of Missouri, and they do a phenomenal job.
Absolutely.
And they're great on support. They have a YouTube channel as well, so please feel free to go check them out. Jack gives you a lot of interesting information, which I think I want to end on safety. Safety is a big thing for us.
We did actually have a question, and I don't have it written down who asked it, but someone was concerned about the batteries and where they were located, being under a bed, especially our daughter's bed, in a cabin. And I wish I could have a list of who that question was from so that we could definitely address that specifically. First of all, safety is an utmost priority, so we would never put our family or our guests in any level of danger. So we definitely vetted the process of the batteries and what we were going to do and the means that we were going to go about making it useful for us to make sure that we were being safe. Secondly, batteries...
Well, in our model.
In our model, that's where they're located. So we did not change the location of the battery bank from its originally manufactured intended placement. So the AGMs came out of that cabin from underneath that bed, and the Teslas went right back into it. The only thing that we did differently was we created a rack system to hold the Teslas in place, whereas the AGMs just laid directly down in the floor. It just dropped them in the hole. Yeah. So we actually have, I would say, almost a more secure situation for the batteries because there is actually a rack system that they are held into versus just being laid into the compartment itself. So to kind of put that to rest, we definitely have done all of the safeguards. We make sure that we monitor the battery temperatures on a absolute, even more than daily basis. It's virtually every time we're checking our battery consumption.
And we don't have to necessarily monitor it individually. This system does not rely on human input for it to be safe.
No.
So there's two fail-safes. There's a fail-safe with that V2 controller from EVTV. So if there's anything that falls outside the parameters of the BMS that is installed on the batteries from Tesla. So they actually just pull that data off of Tesla's BMS. They use that data, they run it through their system, and if there's any anomaly, it just shuts down. It doesn't matter what the anomaly is. If there's anything outside parameter, it shuts down. So there's a safety factor there. Then when everything gets to our inverter charger through Victron, that also has the same level of safety as far as under overcharging, over voltage, short circuit, all of that is handled. Plus everything is fused. Everything is fused. There's more fuses in this system and switches than you can shake a stick at. So, and everything is, as far as the automation goes, is all on contactors. So if something fails, or if power gets lost or there's a surge, it actually collapses and it disconnects. The power actually holds the circuits closed so that they can pass electricity. So if anything fails and disconnects, everything just completely shuts off. Also, a lot of people have questions about lithium being safe. No, lithium does not like water. Lithium does crazy stuff in water. But the water's on the outside of the boat, first of all. And if you
have water on the inside of the boat,
you have bigger problems. And if you have water deep enough around lithium batteries,
you got really big problems.
You got big problems in a catamaran. Also, if you take a lithium battery and throw it in a swimming pool, it doesn't explode. You have to compromise the cell, tear the cell apart, expose the lithium to water, and then there's a reaction time. So the catastrophic impact that it would take to get through the hull, through the bed, through the rack, through the batteries, tear enough modules open to instigate a fire with water is mind-blowing. So everything in life is a calculated risk. Lead acid's off gas, that's a calculated risk. We're on the water, that's a calculated risk.
And arguably, I would say that the Tesla lithium batteries are no more or less dangerous in comparison than any other lithium battery system that anybody would put on a boat. So that would include anything from Rely-On or
Battleborn
or
anybody else
I was thinking of.
So the sum of that is we did our research, and we made sure that first and foremost that it was safe. We could have put a $29 BMS module that monitored kind of most of the parameters on each module, and for a few $100 done that. We didn't feel that was safe. The V2 module is more expensive, but it also offers a whole bunch more features.
Correct.
So it just seemed like a more cohesive system. And if anybody has any questions about why we did that we haven't covered in any of these videos or answered here, please feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to help to make sure that people do this and do this safely. If you don't know what you're doing, ask and learn. If that's not in your wheelhouse, get somebody that does.
Definitely. I mean, to speak to that, we've done a lot of things over the course of the years in our construction world and even in the food truck world that were definitely outside of the parameters of the norm. But we didn't do it haphazardly. It was definitely calculated and well researched before we jumped in to make sure that we did those changes. And tested.
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely know that we aren't doing this in some sort of flippant, haphazard sort of manner. It definitely has been researched and well vetted before we put ourselves and our guests in any sort of
And I think
situation.
lithium is safe. If it wasn't safe, it wouldn't be in your pocket. It probably wouldn't be in the running the device you're probably watching this YouTube video on. So we want to make sure that everybody knows that, yes, we didn't go about this flippantly. I spent somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5 or 5 months developing this system, confirming that the system's going to work, talking to electrical engineers, people that work at Victron, and Jack over at EVTV, and to be able to put this entire system together. So 1, it has fail-safes, 2, it has redundancy, and then 3, it's going to be able to provide all the cool stuff, or to power all the cool stuff that we put on the boat. So I hope this helped. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I know it's kind of a talking head video, so hopefully the next one will be more exciting, but there's not really a sexy, exciting way to go over questions and do a Q&A.
We definitely appreciate everyone's questions, comments, and interest in what we're doing. Definitely hit that subscribe button and don't forget the bell, because those are things that will alert you when our videos come out and keep you up to date on everything that's going on. We are going to be doing lots of things coming up. We've got the front port forward cabin that we're tearing out and getting our storage and utility room put together.
That's awesome.
Which is really exciting. Could be one of the funnest rooms in the boat, funnest projects on the boat. And we have a lot of other things going on too. The mast is going to be coming off soon, as well as getting the rigging taken down because of the damage from the boat falling on our boat. So we'll have information about that coming out in future videos.
Repair videos coming up.
What else do we have coming out? Of course, we have to learn to sail, so don't forget that that's going to be coming out as well.
Watermaker's going in, and we'll talk about Watermaker. That's and who we're using down from Fort Lauderdale, and that's going to be a cool video. Gosh, what else are we doing?
Well, we also have visitors on the boat right now. So the girls' boyfriends are both here. So you'll see the boys in and out too. Yeah. So Alex and Hunter are going to be with us for the next few days, almost 2 weeks.
And we have a full house. There's nothing like living in a boatyard with company in a construction zone after a boat falls on you and you're in hurricane season. Well,
no, almost
5 days. We'll be in hurricane season.
So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click that bell. Thanks for all your comments and questions.
And thanks again to all of our patrons. We really, really appreciate your support and helping us along so that we can keep producing all these videos for everybody. See you guys next week.